Hello everyone, and thank you so much for tuning into my video. I am the Basic Witch. This is my first video of a tarot deck flip through and review. And for my first video, I've decided to go all big and do a comparison of 4 different tarot decks that I have. As you can see, it is the Waite Smith deck. And these are the 4 versions of that I have. So starting from left to right, we have the standard RWS deck, the original RWS deck, the Radiant RWS deck, and the Pam's Vintage Tarot RWS deck. I have put them in order from the ones that I bought earliest to the latest, and without trying, I've put them in order from my least favorite to my most favorite. So this was the first deck that I ever bought, and it'll always be with me, but this is my favorite one on the right here. So I'll just flip through them and you can see the differences between them, and then I will alter the angle differently so that you can see sort of like how thick the cardstock is in comparison to each other. And then at the end, I will show you just how they all shuffle, because I understand that that's really important for a tarot reader or for a tarot collector. So I'll show you how each one of them shuffles. They're all pretty similar anyway, but let's get started. So as you can see, the pictures are all going to be the same. It's just the colors that are going to be different, and the clarity of some of the colors and some of the pictures will be a little bit different. So just for argument's sake, you can see that the Radiant RWS deck is already going to be brighter than the rest and going to be a lot more saturated in its colors and what is depicted on the card, whereas the Vintage deck, well, it looks vintage, so it's going to be a lot more gradient, I think is the word that is appropriate here. Straight off the bat, it's my favorite just because I really love the old look of it. I love the idea of wizards, spell books, and things like that. So to me, this just looks sort of like the closest to parchment, and that's why I love it so much. So let's get started. All right, so with the Magician, you can see that they're all pretty similar. The only thing that I'll point out is as you get different varieties of the same deck, you'll start to see that the facial features and what you can see even on the rest of the card is actually quite different. So if you're someone who not relies, but if you're someone who really likes the colors and stuff, then you know the original RWS deck and maybe even the Pam's Vintage might not be for you, and the Radiant may be more your style. As you can see here, you get a lot more colors. You can see the facial expressions of the Magician so much better than you can with some of the others. Here on the original, you can't really see too much of his face or what his facial expressions might be. But yeah. I also, the other reason that my favorite is the Pam's Vintage, is because I do like a borderless card. So as you can see with the Radiant, whilst I do very much love the colors, the border for me is just a little bit too big, a little bit too wide. And even though you will lose the name of each thing from the Pam's Vintage, or you'll get the number, but you won't get the name of anything, and you'll see that with the minor arcana as well. So if you're new to it, if you're new to tarot, then Pam's Vintage might not be for you again. But if you are quite seasoned, then you might like Pam's the most as well. Again, the Radiant will show more colors. The standard does show some good colors as well, not to take away from the standard or anything like that. And then again, you've got it just looks more vintage. So keep flipping through. This is the standard I'm holding, the original, 2 differences there. Radiant and Pam's. I unfortunately don't have the boxes for these anymore. There's been lost and eaten by my puppy dog, but that's okay. These three are the most common decks that you can buy. The Pam's Vintage Tarot, you have to order specially from, there's 2 websites that do it, and I will put them in the notes at the bottom of this video for all of them so that you can see where you can get these. This one was the most expensive, and I think the original is probably the least expensive out of all of them. But I'll just keep showing you the differences between each card so that you can see. Oops, nearly dropped him. And like, as you can keep seeing, the facial expressions are depicted differently on each card, or more vividly for some. And then what you can see on each is depicted a little bit differently as well. So same picture, just different depictions. For me, or for my opinion, the Radiant will always show the picture probably the most thoroughly. So for me, I am still learning at the moment. So I do find that the Radiant is the one that I'll go to the most when I kind of really want to study a picture. Whereas if you kind of know the basic meanings of each card and stuff, then, you know, the original tarot, again, Pam's Vintage, might be one that you want to go to. And again, there's nothing wrong with the standard either. So just keep flipping through. All of these do come with a little guidebook, or the little white book, as a lot of people refer to them as. But I don't have those anymore either. But that's all right. And there's your standard again. So as you can see, the borders seem to get bigger with the 3 that we have here. So it's entirely up to you whether or not you like borders and how big you like them to be. Obviously people do trim their decks and stuff like that. So again, if you like the Radiant or the original or standard the most, and you don't mind a smaller card, obviously you can trim them. See, like with this one here, you don't really get any depiction on this little Sphinx's face, but here you get a whole tone, or a whole vibe of what they're looking at or what they're looking like. Even with the Pams, it's a little bit harder to see again. The standard doesn't really have much of a depiction of what's going on, which is why I think when you're learning, the Radiant is probably your best bet, especially if you want to study each card. But again, if you're just happy to go along with the basic meanings and your intuition of those things, then any card would work. That's those. Oh, I'm starting to get a little off base here. I'll draw back. There we go. So as you can see, you've got more of a bluey grey, a green almost. This looks like it's like an olive. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but the back of it is like an olive, and this is obviously more of your royal darker blue. And this is a light blue again. So if you are someone who really is into the colour of the card, then I hope this will help you make your decision on what deck you want to get. There are tons of the RWS decks and different versions. So these are not the only 4. In fact, the Pam's has an original artwork tarot deck, which I'm very excited to get as well. So unfortunately, it hasn't arrived for me to do this video, but that's okay because it's quite the struggle at the moment to just hold up these four, but so that you can see them, but that's okay. The other thing, I guess, because a lot of people do like how things are written. So the other thing is with the Radiant, you can see here that it's just, there's not much cursive going on in the writing or anything like that. It's not very bold, like you can see here with the original. And this is just a little bit bigger, much like the Radiant, and the numbers as well. So it all depends on how you like to be able to read things and how you like to be able to see things, which you'll work out which one you like the most. And I feel like when it comes to, especially with the major arcana, like these are giving you guidance in some really big things. So you need to be able to identify well with your deck. So hopefully this will help you. He's got white hair in this one, where he's blonde in the others. And the colour of his clothing is again on the original here. And on the Pam's it's more of an olive or a green, whereas on your standard and your Radiant it's more of a blue. Even the leaves are a different colour, which is quite interesting. I do apologise for my nails, regardless of whether or not that's a factor in whether or not you like this video. We are currently in lockdown here in Victoria. We're only just starting to come out of them, so I think I've done all right to keep them as much as I have. But yeah. So as you can see, even if it's borderless, you do get perhaps a tiny bit more depicted in each video, in each card, sorry, than you would if you had a border. So it is minimal difference, but nothing's really cut off, as opposed to like this woman's, her flowers are cut off at the end of each one. And obviously the picture can be just a little bit bigger. The priest is a bit bigger in the Pam's than he is in the other ones. So that's the death card. Then you've got your temperance. So again, not much colour in your Pam's and your original. And you've got more colour in your standard and your Radiant. Even, I just noticed this is a little bit different. You've got your little glow that isn't quite depicted. There's no crown. Well, there you go. See? Every time you go through your deck, you'll always find something different and something else that you'll notice. Something else that might give a message. Ooh, I nearly dropped him. I wonder if it'd help if I just ran. No, I like the way that I'm doing this. Sorry guys, I'm just getting re-comfortable. Right. So you can't really see the facial expressions. Obviously they're in horror because they're falling out of a tower, but again on the Radiant, much more depiction of what's going on. But I love anything vintage, so I'll never stop loving the Pam's. I'm very excited to see her, the Pam's original artwork. I feel like, well, from the pictures that I've seen, it almost looks like a Radiant. And when I receive it, I'll definitely get a video for you guys so that you can see it as well. Even the bird is drawn with so much more detail. You can see even his little face. And again, you've got more of an olive and a green, and the blues in the Radiant and the Standard. It almost looks like daytime in each of these three, and the Radiant is the only one that's depicting the night, isn't it? So that's a bit interesting. And you've got your sun. Nice white horse here, depicting your purity. And some beautiful sunflowers. Sorry about that. Don't know if you noticed the bit of the pause there. Just had to have a drink of water. And I hate the sound of eating and drinking on camera, especially when you can't hear anything else. So I didn't want to inconvenience you guys with those sounds. Back to so we're nearly at the end of the major arcana, and then I've put the minor arcanas in alphabetical order of their suits because that is the level of neurotic behaviors I have. So hopefully that aesthetically pleases you too. Even the little lines here on the Radiant, you can see so much better. This is definitely probably my second favorite deck. If it wasn't for the borders, I might have to trim them. Have a go at it. All right, now we're into the cup suits. So again, you can see here with the water, it's much more of an olive or a green compared to the Standard and the Radiant, and there's just a lot more imagery in the Radiant as well. But it's interesting to see what colors different decks have. See if I can get a little bit different angle in the light so that you can see sort of the other colors that I'm talking about. So it's much more of a brighter yellow in all of them on the Standard. Even like their robes, see, it's more red on the original for both women here, whereas the other decks portray different colours. Subtly, but they do portray different colours. And I never knew she was holding grapes until I got the Radiant. So again, it all just depends on what you want to do with your tarot deck, which will not dictate, but it'll help you decide which deck you want. And I feel like having different versions of the RWS deck is super helpful, because not every day is the same. You're not always going to have the same feelings and vibes, and what you use for one deck might be different for another, and how you relate to one deck will be different for another. So I think it's always good to have a couple, and especially aside from the Pam's vintage, which I did say was the most expensive, I do believe it's only getting printed in America, and as I said, it's only getting printed via 2 websites. So it was about 65 Australian dollars to get it here to me in Victoria, Australia. Whereas I think this one I bought in a local new age store, so it was about 25. This one was about 18 on Amazon, and I think maybe even just 20 to 25 on Amazon again. So perhaps your budget will depict what you will get first or what you want first. But that's entirely up to you, isn't it? Hopefully this video has helped you make a decision, but there are so many others out there, guys, with so many other decks or other versions of this deck. If I can remember any of them, I'll let you know. There was one, I think, the presenter had about 8 different versions. But if you searched RWS or Waite Smith deck comparison or flip through, you'll find them very easily as to which ones they were. But there's not just these 4 out there, guys. And I have on sort of Instagram and different forums that I've been on, although this one is probably it's not necessarily the most talked about, it's just the one that a lot of beginners seem to get recommended to, or it was certainly the one that I was recommended to when I was beginning. But there are so many others out there that you may just gravitate to the most for your learnings, and that's fine as well. I'll be putting up a video every week of a new deck. They'll be much shorter than this video because I'll only have one to go through at a time on those ones. This one is my longest, I would suggest. And I will be repeating some things the same in each video. Once I've got all these back in their respective piles, I'll show you the backs as well, because that's also important for some readers. I definitely like a pretty back of my cards, and some, which I will be going through in later weeks, will have backs which suggest that the intention of the deck was not for reversals, whereas these RWS decks are intended for you to be able to read reversals if you so wish. The ones that I have that weren't necessarily intended to read reversals, obviously you still can. And the creator of those decks does mention that. But it, again, just completely depends on what you want to do. So that's nearly the end of the suit of cups. With the court cards again, more depiction dependent on the version, and especially if there's a lot going on in the picture, if you can get as much detail as possible, as you can see here. The more detail, the better, sometimes for your readings. And then in each video as well, I'll be putting them up against the standard, just so that you can see the different sizes and different cardstocks, because all decks will have a different cardstock. Some will be thicker, some will be thinner. So I'll compare them against the standard just so that you can see both size and thickness, because that'll obviously alter your shuffling depending on how you shuffle, or how you go through, how you lay them out and stuff like that. So we're now up to the pentacles. I really do love the greenery on the Radiant. I think it's just beautiful. That's a bit easy for you maybe to see in the different lighting. Whoop. Very good. So yeah, as you can see here, this brick area is grey, and then it's yellow, and then it's more grey blue, and then again it's more of a brown. And same with everybody's clothes. The standard and the radiant will obviously show more colours and more detail in the clothes. Ooh, I've done that a bit wrong, haven't I? Cheeky. I went through this to make sure that it was all in order, but obviously I didn't do a very good job, but that's all right. That's all right. So as you can see, even with the Pam's Vintage, the number for the minor arcana is not there at all. And if you don't know Roman numerals, which I don't, then the radiant might be your go-to as well, because that just says the word, not the Roman numeral. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. I just had to duck off again and just delete some photos and things so that I'd have more memory for this video, because I have waffled on far more than I thought I was going to. Again, my other videos won't be this long, as I will only have one deck to go through. So hopefully, given the amount of time that I've talked, this is actually going to be helpful to you, and I haven't been too annoying. And then all of them, a bit of a different light again. There's a few shadows in my office at the moment, but hopefully you'll be able to see the differences okay. Okay. So we're nearing the end of the Pentacles, which means we've only got the Wands. Oh no, I do apologise, we've got the Swords. So we're nearly halfway through the Minor Arcana. Even and I just love dogs, so I'm very happy to see more of a depiction here. Even on the Pam's one, there's still a little bit of what's more going on. And as time goes on, if you guys have any decks that you haven't seen or you're thinking about buying, please put them up in the comments. I'm always interested in sourcing new decks, reviewing new decks, having a look at new decks. So if I can, I'd be more than happy to have my bank account take one for the team, so that you guys can make a more sound decision. I've actually grown my collection a lot quicker than I thought I was going to. There's no bunny in this. There's no bunny in any of them, except for this one, and he's there. Oh no, there is a bunny. My apologies, you just can't really see it. and you can't see the side of the Queen's throne too well on the others. So as I've said, I think if you really want to study the picture and what's going on, then the Radiant would be best. Whereas if you're happy to just go with the general gist, your intuition and your experience and knowledge, then the others might be well suited to you. We're up to the swords now. You will note that with these, with the traditional RWS, they were focused much with the depiction of Christianity, which is why you found that sort of the Hierophant and stuff like that looked a bit like the Pope or a priest, whereas any other deck that is based on RWS but has its own pictures and pips and stuff like that, they'll depict a whole different person, animal, or object. As you can see, unfortunately, my little puppy dog has gotten a hold of this. But after this video, they're probably going to get pasted into a journal so that I can start writing out all of my little thoughts and ideas. And maybe that is also why one can have more than one version of the RWS deck. You can adjust and put these cards wherever you like. You don't always have to use them for readings and stuff like that. Look at the blues on the Radiant compared to the others. It's just... the Three of Swords is meant to be obviously quite a betrayal and an upsetting card, but it's very pretty on the Radiant, isn't it? Very yellow on the Standard. This is the more gold, I guess, on the Radiant. Even the stained glass, like, so much different between each card. Whoop. Straighten it up. There we go. Probably am going to have to pause again real quick, guys, just because these are piling up. And I want to be able to show you the height and cardstock at the end of this and the shuffling, and I need them to be in order. I'll let you know when I've done that once again. Yellow, yellow, yellow. See, especially when it comes to a card where the background and the foreground is going to be one colour, it's still so vastly different on each one. As to how they are depicted. We're nearly down to our last suit. I'm not going to rush them. Each card is important. Hopefully you've gotten the main idea, though, of what each version is doing and how they're doing it. And as I said, I'll let you all know where you can get each deck from. Just the main internet stores. So Amazon will probably be for all three for a start. And then if I can find any for Australia, I'll let you know as well, because some decks that I have you could only get from certain countries, so that makes them a little bit more expensive. And some decks will be Kickstarter decks. So I can let you know at the point of those videos if they've either gone mass market or if the creator of those decks has been able to continue to produce them, so that you guys can get them as well. if you like them, of course. After the end of the sword suit, I will pause this and rearrange, and then we'll continue. Even again, for the Knight of Swords, you really do want some. Pam's vintage is able to depict quite a tone in his face, which is good. Here we are. Oops. Nearly cut off one of her. Off with her head. Alright, so I'll just pause real quick and then we'll do the very last suit. I'll show you the backs and we'll do some shuffling as well. Hang tight, guys. Alright, you guys didn't go anywhere, but I certainly did, but thanks for waiting. So the last suit, we've got our wands, and then I will show you the backs, the height differences, the size differences if there is any, which there isn't, but I'll show you anyway, and some shuffling. Even though I'll probably go through it at the time of the shuffling, I try my best to do that. I think it's a riffle shuffle they call it, when like you hold it and you go floop. Some people don't like doing that because it is rough on the cards and you get that little bow. There are ways around that, or you can shuffle them different, or sort of shuffle them face up and face down. Face up when you're not using them, just to counteract that bow, if you so wish, and I'll show you how I do that as well, or what I mean by it, not how I do it. I'm not a professional. Not a professional shuffler, I do my best. But again, I believe that it's up to the reader how they want to shuffle the cards. In my opinion, when I go to a reader, I don't riffle shuffle if they let me shuffle their deck. Because again, you just don't know how people want to do things. These depicted so specifically detailed on the Radiant. So yeah, as I was saying, if I go to a reader and they give me their deck to shuffle, I don't do the riffle shuffle. I'll only do it on my own cards, or if anyone specifically tells me that I can shuffle their deck if they're doing a reading. However I wish, and I personally don't mind how people shuffle my decks if I'm doing a reading on them. But you know, it's always very courteous to ask or to let them know prior. I'm not going to tell you how to do your readings, are you? Do you, boo-boo? Oops, sorry, I'm losing him. This horse in the Radiant looks a little bit like my dog when I get on his last nerve, when I'm just trying to get his attention so that he'll come over. But he does enjoy sitting in front of the heater. So if he doesn't want to move, I get a very annoyed side eye. Very blue for your Standard and your Radiant. And again, an olivey green on your original and your Pam's vintage. I feel like I should have more to tell you guys about these things. or about these decks. So if you did sort of enjoy how I did this video, but you would like me to talk more about the history of the decks or the people that made them, or any history or information or whatever you want to know, just let me know in the comments. If I've spoken too much, let me know, and I'll be a lot more quiet and I'll tell you a lot less stories about my animals. And about my nails. As the words were coming out of my mouth, I was like, they don't care. They've come to see tarot cards, not your hands, woman. But you know when you get that awkward silence with yourself sometimes and you're like, I should talk. I should fill the void. That's how I felt in that moment. So I have noticed with the Pam's Vintage, if you don't know what the court cards will look like, they do, like, you can get the gist of them. Like a knight looks very different to a queen or a king or even a page, but without the names, especially if you're new, it can be very hard to remember what's going on. Even sort of, I might put a queen against a king. I have noticed in all the suits, so the queen is always sort of facing. Nope, I totally lied. Some queens are on the side. So yes, it can be a little bit difficult as well. If you've got the borderless ones and they don't write what they are, it can be a little bit difficult, especially when you first start out. So I'll keep a standard king and queen. So I guess the queens have more detailed crowns, perhaps. King's got a little gecko. And obviously the pages are people not on horses. Oh my god, I don't know if you heard that, but my dog just barked and I didn't know it was going to happen. Whew! That's the girl. I think she thinks it's dinner time. My husband can sort that out. As you just heard. Oh, she thought there was someone at the door. Super cute, super cute. Alright, you guys. So that is all of the cards. I've got a little bit of a pile to sort out on the side here. So I'll do that really quick and then we'll have a look at sizes and shuffling. Alright everybody, so I've put them all back in order. Now I'll let you guys have a bit of a look at the size differences. So I think, there we go, maybe that's a little bit easy for you to see. So this one, the original, is the thickest of all of them. The Radiant is the smallest or shortest of all of them. And then your Standard and your Pams are really quite the same. So this one does have a lot thicker cardstock and it's a lot sturdier. Your Pam's is really quite, I wouldn't say flimsy, it's just thinner. And I'll give you a better look at the backs right now. Just my little pink cushion so that you guys don't need to look at my monitor behind it. So these are the backs. All of them are quite, not boring. The Radiant again has the most exciting back each one. And then I'll hold it up so that you can see. And as you can see, it really doesn't matter which way any of them are. You won't be able to tell if it's upright or if it's reversed. So if you are reading reversals, you'll never know what's in the deck or which way it's facing. So now we'll do a really quick, oh, the other thing I forgot to tell you is if you do order the Pam's Vintage Tarot, they send you 2 extra cards that's just got some artwork on it, which I think is really pretty. I don't use it for any tarot reading or anything like that. As Pamela Coleman Smith. So I'm not entirely sure if it was artwork that was done by Pamela. perhaps would probably Oz if she signed it, hey. I don't use it in my tarot readings or anything like that, but if you have an intuitive feeling with it, then yeah, why not? Why not use it? So I'll do a shuffle of the standard and then the original radiant, and then Pam's. I'll just do a really quick shuffle on all of them, sorry, just so you can see if it's smooth or anything like that. So just your standard way. See, I'm not great at it, but there you go. See, it's pretty smooth. Try and bring it up a little bit better for you. Oh, that doesn't help you, does it? Bink. There we go. So yeah, it's pretty smooth. I'm not the fastest shuffler in the entire world. And you'll have to excuse my right hand is a little bit sore at the moment, but I'll try and do the riffle as best I can for you. Oop. So what I mean, the face-up riffle to counteract that bow is literally you have the pictures faced up. And I only do this if I'm not doing a reading or anything like that, obviously, because then you can see. But I just do this if I'm aimlessly shuffling anything. That all just dropped, but that's okay. And then if you kind of do that enough times, it will counteract the bow. There's not really one in there anymore. If I lie it flat, it seems to have disappeared because I do it enough that you can't tell. So those are a sturdy card, but they shuffle quite smoothly, which is good. Same with the original, except for the fact that my dog got at that one. So you always know, oops, he's got a little bite in there. So my little bitten one is always the Two of Swords. But that's all right. So these ones are even smoother again. Which is good. And then I'll do a really quick riffle. So these are the thickest of all of the 4 cards that I have. Oops. See, I'm not always the best at it. There you go. So I'm going to do it once more. And hopefully I will get my credibility back. But it's not happening. My little right hand is a little bit sore, but that's okay. We've only got 2 more decks to shuffle through, don't we? Ooh, there we go. So this is the thickest, it is the sturdiest. So riffling is a little bit harder on this one again. Probably doesn't help that my dog has eaten some of it. Is that 2? Ah, 2 of Swords. All right, I'm definitely going to have to possibly retire that deck. I'm always going to know when the Two of Swords pops up. So this is the Radiant, the thinnest. Oops, doesn't really show you much, does it? So shuffles quite well, shuffles quite smooth, and riffling so much easier. Look at that. To bend and control, except for that moment when it wasn't very good. So we'll do it again. Get in there. It's a bit better. I apologise that my shuffling is not that of a poker player, but hopefully with these weeks I'll practice a little bit. And this is your Pam's Vintage. This is a very smooth shuffle. It's quite slippery. I find that this one is the one where the most cards fall out while I'm shuffling, or jump out at me, which I take as a sign to read. You do you. And I'll do a riffle really quickly. I think it's riffle or ripple. I'm not quite sure. It's the poker shuffle. There we go. First time I got that quite right. We'll do it once more just so you can see. My poor little hand. there we go. All right, guys, so now that they're shuffled, they've gone a little bit reversed on me, but that's all right. I like reading reversals. So that is the standard, the original, the radiant, and the Pam's vintage of the Rider Waite Smith tarot decks. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear about them. And as I said, every week I will be putting up a new deck. You can follow me on Instagram at basicwitchtarot_. On here, I've just made my Facebook for this site, so I'll let you know when that's sort of more up and running. And I also have a website called thebasicwitchtarot.com. Thank you so much for being here with me today, and I hope to see you back next week for a shorter video and a newer deck. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.